Hello and welcome to another Magic the Gathering Arena video where we'll once again be looking at Brawl. Now, for this time I'm going to need you to get a little bit aggressive and incredibly generous because it's time for some Grumgully. Now then, Grumgully. So, Gruul honestly I think has quite a few decent options for what you want to do with the commander. And Grumgully is one that I quite enjoy the idea of because it's just so wide in what it can do. It essentially puts a +1/+1 counter on every creature in your deck, so long as your deck doesn't have humans in, which is a pretty easy criteria to meet. So, generally speaking, the plan is to be pretty aggressive, to start swinging in, and to just get as much value as we can from getting the additional counters on things as possible. So, right off the bat, we have a Gilded Goose for a little bit of ramp, so we can get our bigger things out. Pelt Collector, since it grows when all of our other things come down. It enters as a 2/2 if we've got Grumgully out, but if we're playing it early, then it's fine because our other things are entering bigger, so it's likely to grow still. And then we have a Barge In and a Stony Strength. This to just get a counter on something, which isn't the best all the time, but it can get it on Grumgully, which otherwise has fewer options of getting it on. And it does also untap that creature for a few shenanigans. And Barge In, since all non-attacking humans gain trample, they should be big from all of the counters from Grumgully, and then one of those creatures gets an additional +2/+2 to punch through the damage. And then a Stonecoil Serpent, since whatever our mana is like, we can make it as big as that. Reach and Trample are both relevant keywords. It's got pro multicolor, so we've got protection from a few decent threats. And then obviously Grumgully gives it an additional +1. So it's a 1/1 for 0. So Memnite, I think it's called. That is that. But and even then it's got all of the keywords on it, so it's still better than that. Plus a counter, which is more easily manipulatable. So yeah, moving into the 2-mana slot, Incubation Druid, absolutely brilliant if we get it out after Grumgully, since it enters with a counter, and whilst we can't then adapt it, it then does mean that the following turn it will be generating 3 mana right off the bat. Paradise Druid, and then Pollen Bright Druid for another way to get a counter on Grumgully and to proliferate everything else. Wildborn Preserver, it's got flash and reach, so once again deals with flyers where we otherwise might have a few more weaknesses. It can come in at instant speed, so we can catch something off guard, and it grows whenever, or can grow whenever a non-human creature enters the battlefield, which once again is pretty much everything in this deck. Titanic Brawl, if something has a +1/+1 counter on it, it's cheaper, and then we can add instant speed, just force a fight. So, a good option for removal. Domri's Ambush, once again gets a counter on something, and this time the fight's one-sided, so we don't have to worry about the fight back. Steelbane Hydra and Voracious Hydra are both more X spells that can benefit from the additional counter from Grumgully. We can either then double the counters on Voracious Hydra to make it absolutely insanely massive, or more often than not we'll use it to fight something. Steelbane Hydra is in the same boat. It's not got trample, so it's a little less of an effective beater, but we can then remove those counters to destroy artifacts and enchantments, and it gives us a fair amount of ways of dealing with those threats. Krenko. He makes goblins. All of those goblins enter with additional counters. Krenko himself enters with an additional counter, so he's already making more goblins. It can get pretty insane pretty quickly if Krenko is able to hit the board and stay alive. Evolution Sage. Whenever we play a land, proliferate. Most of our things should have counters on, so most of our things should be getting bigger every time we play a land. So even if we end up in a stalemate, where we're just drawing lands, we shouldn't have dead draws with this down. Zhang Yangu makes everything into a mana dork, and can get counters on things. Domri, more ramp, gives us fight on a stick, gives our creatures +1/+0 for a bit of a more aggressive beatdown. Rhythm of the Wild, haste, or another +1/+1 counter, depending on what we need really. Collision Colossus allows us to punch through hard, another way of dealing with flyers. Bloom Hulk, it's another proliferate trigger. It's not particularly overwhelming. It is probably a card that could get switched out, but it's just another blanket proliferate effect, and is a pretty decent body there, at least on curve at 4 mana for a 4/4, which can be a 5/5 with Grumgully. Mowu is the one that we really hope doesn't get removed, that they don't have an answer for, because it gets big and it just doesn't stop. So whenever a counter's put on it, it gets another one. So Grumgully gives it 2 counters. It enters as a 5/5. Rhythm of the Wild, it's now a 7/7. Stony Strength is now a 9/9. It just keeps going, and it's kind of hilarious when it's then also got Vigilance and Trample. So it's not even able to then attack and punch through, but able to stay on defense as well. Beast Whisperer and Guardian Project are our main card draw engines. So Guardian Project obviously draws us a card whenever we play anything, and Beast Whisperer whenever we cast something. Well, whenever a non-token enters. So I don't think we've got any ways of getting things that aren't... Yeah, we're not getting anything down, don't think, without casting it. But maybe if they exile something with an enchantment and we blow it up with the Steelbane Hydra, then that gets an additional trigger there at least. Arcbow Ranger, more +1/+1 counter distribution, gives trample, so we can punch through. Since we have very few trample enablers on the whole, and very few things I think that have naturally trample. I think Voracious, Stone Coil, Mowu. That doesn't, so yep. The other Domri. I mean, I guess there's also the Planeswalker deck Domri, but we don't talk about the Planeswalker deck Planeswalkers too often. So it gives Riot, so another way of getting counters, and it can refuel our hand if we're running low. In the rare occasion that the opponent doesn't have anything to punch through to Domri, or any targeted removal, that emblem just makes 5/5 beasts for us with trample every turn. Not each of our turns, each turn. So it's, yeah, the opponent will have a really hard time overcoming that if we ever get the emblem. Samut is, I think, pretty much our only human in here. But Planeswalkers, so it doesn't count. Because it gives everything haste. And it can apply a buff. So Krenko is really the thing that I wanted to work off with the most, but it's still good with a lot of our big things in general. Skargan Hellkite, we can haste it in, and it can get the counter, so that its ability will always be able to be used. Trollbred Guardian, every creature with a counter on it has trample. We could also arguably put in, and might be better, the Aggressive Mammoth at 6 mana, just because that is a bigger body, naturally has trample, and gives everything trample, so it doesn't need to have the counter for it. But most of the things have trample, so it's not a big deal. Biogenic Ooze, once again, the Ooze tokens enter with counters on it, so we just keep getting bigger oozes from the get-go, that then also keep getting bigger because of the ooze itself. Keeper of Fables, it's able to draw us cards. It's probably one of the weaker draw engines, but it is another draw engine nonetheless. We don't want to run out of fuel. Return of the Wild Speaker can be a great finisher with our +3/+3 to all of our creatures, or we draw cards equal to the power of the greatest power creature we have. So once again, it's either a refuel card or a finisher, depending on the situation. Thrash Threat is a one-sided fight on one end, and it creates us a 4/4, potentially 5/5 with Grumgully beast. So it's just another form of removal. This, alongside Domri's Ambush, main important thing with them is they can hit Planeswalkers as well as creatures. So that's the main reason why this is in here. Ravager Worm fights on entry. Or can destroy a land, so all of those people who are playing Field of the Dead, gone, eaten by a Ravager Worm. Now, Biogenic Upgrade, I'll come back to in a second, because I'm going to make a change. And the Great Henge, once again, puts a counter on everything. Draws cards, gains his life. I don't think at this point it's really worth mentioning just how good Great Henge is. it's just a power card. It does everything you want to do in green, and we're going to be doing a lot of it. Now, Biogenic Upgrade is fun. At 6 mana, you get to distribute 3 counters on 3 creatures, and then double the number of counters on it. Obvious ideal targets are Stonecoil Serpent, Hydras, etc. Things, or Moe, things that have a lot of counters on, or are likely to get a lot of counters on, because it puts the additional counter on, and then it doubles it. The total number, not the number put on. So, if we, say for example, play this for 5, get the additional one from Grumgully, and then play this, targeting it, then we get 14 counters on it. And that's assuming we only put one of the counters on. If we were to put all 3 of them, then it's going to be even bigger still. So, yeah, very powerful, very punchy card. However, I think it's at 6 mana, and the fact that it only doubles, it requires a lot of our setup to actually get it to pay off. I think there is one game that I may have a small clip from the ending of, where it actually went off, but most of the time it's been dead in my hand, since there's not been enough things to double the counters on for it to get good value, or at least amazing value, and the lack of trample is also another issue, since they then just get chump blocked anyway. However, in one of the matches that you'll see, there is another goblin that I completely missed, Legion Warboss. And I think this is honestly a better choice for the deck, because it fits into the same thing as with Krenko and with Biogenic Ooze, where it's creating those tokens with the counters on already. So it's already able to provide us continued value. Now, the goblins are slightly less valuable on the fact that they have to attack, so if the opponents have something to chump block it and we've not got aggressive attacks on top of it, it does eat the goblins. But for the most part, I do think it's a much more aggressive play, especially since we're not expecting to get to the high end all that often, or at least not prolonged there. Most of the time, when we get to the high end, we want to be drawing some cards and playing out a wide board, since we are going a lot wider than tall. I have another Brawl deck that's meant to be going tall, so I'll go to that at another time, play through with that one, see how it differs from this, since there's a lot of possibilities in Brawl with how you build, and it's also just why I like Grumgully as much as it is because it's specifically just non-humans. You can have so much leeway with how you want to build the deck. So you could even probably just do Goblin Tribal, since I mean, most goblins are mono red, so it wouldn't be too much of an issue, but you do get Grumgully, you do get Zertar. Grumgully does then give additional counters to all of the other goblins, so... and then, of course, just as a side mention, as our sleeves, we have our lovely Rainbow Dash ones, because there's something just tickles me about punching people to death with a generous goblin with sleeves of the of a pony of friendship, because there's nothing that quite says Gruul aggro as friendship. Now, with regards to cards that were considered but didn't quite make the cut, Runaway Steamkin. It's a nice way to make some extra mana once we get to the 4 counters, and if it comes in after Grumgully, we do get a head start with that. But we're very red light compared to green, so it's not going to be getting that many counters on it on the whole. Bark-Eyed Troll and Yorvo were both good considerations, since they already enter with counters, so there's the benefits there already. They get their additional counters. The issue I had with them was their double green and triple green, respectively, since it made it a little bit hard to play reasonably on curve, especially with our singleton mana base. So I decided against them, though they could still be very good options, just because I wanted a little bit more consistency with our options available. Scampering Scorcher, it gives us 3 bodies, which then should be 2/2s, but they are just at that point 2/2s, for which it's a good cost for what we're getting, but I feel that there were more impactful 4-mana plays, especially since our 4-mana plays were pretty heavy already. Yeah, so we had quite a few 4-drops in that slot already. I didn't want to put in another one, especially since Bloom Hulk, whilst it's also still not that great, theoretically puts a lot more counters on and puts a lot more power on the board, especially since it itself is getting the power with Grumgully of almost all of the Scampering Scorcher on its own. So, not quite good enough. Nissa, I think I just didn't have one at the time of actually making it, and I'm still not 100% sure whether or not it would go in or not. Since making lands into creatures is pretty decent for both punching as well as the ramp it provides. But I then... Yeah, maybe I'm underestimating it, but I don't want to lose my lands all that much. And because of the fact that the lands aren't entering the battlefield, they don't get any counters from Grumgully, so it's not like we're making bigger forests from it. Brawlwreck Clan Crusher gets to deal 2 damage for removing a counter and tapping it, which isn't a lot of damage, especially since it's then reducing the power of something else. And I would probably have considered it a little bit more heavily if it wasn't a tap ability, or if it didn't remove the counter and only and did it based on the number of counters there were or something. Embercleave, now this is one that I definitely didn't have when I made this deck, because I was considering it, decided against crafting it. I've pulled one since then, probably as a consideration with the deck, probably will go in somewhere, since once again we're planning on going wide, so our stuff's already, you know, going to be making the Embercleave cheaper. The Embercleave itself then will give something trample, which allows us to take advantage of the high power, and then the double strike just doubles the power. So it's a good option, and is one that was only really missed because I didn't have one at the time. Mirror March would be absolutely hilarious, but at 6 mana. And at 6 mana, it feels like the hilariousness of it is not quite worthwhile, because of the fact that it's based on coin flips. So it could get a lot of value. More likely than not, it's going to just get a couple of copies of something and then have very little impact. Rumbling Ruin is a finisher, and it is another thing that could be considered going in. I think when I cut it originally, I was worried that I wouldn't have quite enough +1/+1 counters on everything to take advantage of it. And that may still be the case, since it's essentially, this is a great finisher, assuming that Grumgully comes down early, doesn't immediately get removed, we get some token generators to get a bunch of things with counters on, we don't get board wiped, and then Rumbling Ruin gets played at 6 mana. It's a little bit too much to ask most of the time, although it does have an amazing body, so, well, amazing stat line. For the cost, it's reasonable. So, considered, but I think that just the trampling through was the better way to go with it than just having one turn of being able to attack through. Maybe I'm wrong, but at 6 mana it's hard to justify. Similar case with Tuin Vale Treefolk. It gets to put 2 counters on something as the Oak and Boon side of it, so we do get the double value, but the other side is just vanilla, so we get no real value from there outside of the body, which, quite frankly, isn't quite worth playing on its own for. Ugin's Conjurant, it's another counter matters creature, another X spell. At the end of the day, though, it's probably the worst one, since it gets weaker every time it's dealt damage, equal to the amount of damage dealt to it. So, yes, it's big, and it also technically stops Death Touch, but it's not going to stay big, so it's not quite worthwhile. And Guildmage's Forum is another way of getting a counter on something. As a land, it's reasonable. However, it only works with multicolored creatures. We have 8 multicolored cards, and I'm pretty sure that, yeah, there's 3 of them. 4, 5, 6, 7. So that leaves us with 2. We have our Ravager Worm and our Grumgully as cards that can actually benefit from it. And I'm not sure that's 100% something that can be sorted all that well with our additional options. So I guess Zertar Goblin is another good option if we were to go for a more aggressive slant. That could do it. Same with Grill Spellbreaker for a much more aggressive earlier play up. Although this is probably a lot more mid-range than full-on aggro. But yeah, so whilst there are still options for getting that land in there, it's not quite worth it for what we've got going. So that should be a pretty short summary. As I said, I've got another... oh yeah, of course I put in the Grumgully. Not the Grumgully, the Elite Goblin guy. So yeah, as I said, I do have another Gruul deck that at some point down the line I will go over. So very little to talk about, since essentially the deck that I wanted to build for big punchy stuff went there, and Grumgully went a lot more into the wide spread method of that. However, without further ado, let's get into some games. Alright, Yarok. Let's be the bestest of friends, but not with that hand. I'm playing mono green now, I guess. If I draw a red, this is an amazing hand. If I don't draw a red, then let's just hope I keep drawing lands at least still. I think this is still fine though. Even though I've not got the red, I do have the Catapult Collector. I have the Evolution Sage. So I've got plays. I just need more plays, ideally. Well, I am still just firmly in that mono-green mindset. Yep. Well, my Pelt Collector's bigger now. Okay, so they have potentially 5 mana this turn, so Yarok could come down. Okay, that's an interesting one to play in Yarok, since you then have to pay for it twice when it enters. Oh my god, is that red mana? I think it is. I think I actually dropped Vivian there. Now, do I put the power up?
Sounds of the wild.
Do I? I think I do this. Sure, they may have ramp. I mean, they still have 3 mana available, so they could just Murderous Rider Vivian right here. Yeah. But that's fine, because it burns the fuel for Gilded Goose. It gets a counter onto Evolution Sage.
Get out of the way if I were you.
It gets a lot of damage through. And they'll have trample anyway if I get a Trollbred Guardian down. Although I probably will drop the Use first. More lands. So they got mana up now. This is gonna get scary in a bit. Goose is down. Grumgully. I should be able to finish this out next turn. I mean, if they've got Agent of Treachery, which I assume they do, they steal something, I can Return of the Wild Speaker to punch through. Because that's got Trample. And that's tapped. Good game. Almost completely mono green. I mean, this is I think a very green heavy deck still. Even though so amusingly, Gruul is probably my least favorite color combination, but it's really cathartic to play sometimes, and I do love Grumgully as an idea. But yeah, I've got two Gruul decks, and one of them is a lot heavier on the green than the other, and I think it's the other one that is. Once again, okay, I think this it could be better. Let's be honest here, but it'll do. I mean, I don't have anything really until Grumgully, and then hope I draw a land to put down with Evolution Sage, which then, in response to the trigger, I can Stony Strength Grumgully to get a counter on it, then proliferate both. It's somewhat silly. Oh, Chandra. I've not seen Chandra as a commander yet, so I'm guessing big red, mono red control elements, maybe elementals to some extent. Yeah, let's start with command tower. Could just be standard mono red with Chandra just as the card they want to always get. Oh, Guardian Project is nice. Although this does mean that Grumgully could very easily die. Do I run out Grumgully, or do I wait a turn and hope to protect it from 4 damage stuff? We're playing Brawl. We don't think, we smash. Singles. Okay, they've got something. Yep, Scorching Dragonfire. Land zone. Take 4. I'm going to drop Guardian Project definitely first. Awkwardly, only the 1 green. So I can't Evolution Sage and keep up the protection with Collision, with Stony Strength, or not that it's likely to be as much protection. Alchemist currently can't get the Scorching Dragonfire back, but it could very easily do so. So Paradise Druid has Hexproof. I would have to block and trade, so I think this is the route we go, and just hope. I guess I shouldn't have tapped like that. We should have actually paid attention to that, because if I draw a green land here, then okay, it's a red one, so and I've got nothing to proliferate. Yay. I think this is just a case of us getting out aggroed. Okay, that's promising. It could still have something. So if I can get the Great Henge down. I hope I counted that right. Yeah, Great Henge pays for itself, gives me life, lets me play the Paradise Druid, starts getting counters on things to be proliferated, so I can offset some of this burn, and now I start getting card draw. Here we go. Bloomhulk. Mowu, that's a good one. No attacks. Eight mana available to me, 5. If I draw one, I can get no down. Oh, Akara, you're a problem. Okay, no rocks for now. We're getting close. Oh, wait, I've miscounted that, so I could play Mowu anyway. Yeah, let's drop Mowu. Mowu's our win con here. Enters with initial counter, gets another 2 put on it. Is about to get proliferated up. That's a big Mowu. This stage, I think Keeper is actually what I'm going to throw. The Great Henge is going to provide me enough card draw. Return of the Wild Speaker can provide me insane amounts of card draw as well, if necessary. Mowu can start punching through.
My scales. Your end has arrived.
They're going to try and now just chip through damage. I think I'm going to Stony Strength on Evolution Sage so that everything has a counter on him. So, how do we do this? Start off. So we can kill the dragon. That's pretty good. Ah, did that too soon. Oops. No, it was pretty big. So I think I mechanic rule like so. Now, I believe I have lethal by a small margin. Yeah. Okay, didn't get out aggroed. Brought it back thanks to Great Hedge. Gruul versus Gruul. Let's do it. This is a bit on the slow side. So if they're playing incredibly aggressive, then we're in for a rough time. However, if they're playing more into the late game, I think we've got a decent-ish chance. I mean, I guess the main issue is Domri right off the bat can force a fight. So we've got to hope that they don't have anything with 3 power down. They don't. Although it still has to be for next time because I'm playing this because I want Krenko. Get the goblins going. The fact they haven't played anything scares me. Okay, I think I Guardian Project first. What is this? Just Once Upon a Time? Oh no, they did have something. Yeah, but that would have killed Krenko anyway. So I guess at least Krenko gets to live now. Hooray! Although Drummer's still able to force the fight and kill. Legion Warboss should be in here. That's a good point. Okay, so 2, 4, 5. So we live 5 plus. Assuming no shenanigans. Which, they're playing Gruul. They can haste anything in, pretty much. They can give a buff. Plenty of options. Heck, in fact, just them playing Domri actually does it. So now that was a... Yeah, that probably wasn't the play. But then again, Krenko draws me a card, but then Krenko dies. Yeah. Domri's the right play there. Warboss should be in this deck if it's not already.
I was raised by wolves. Though it might have also just been big dogs.
Oh, they did have it Once Upon a Time, but I bet they drew it late, given that they would have played it first otherwise. And that's a Questing Beast, so maybe they don't even attack beyond to kill and go for Questing Beast, but nah, yeah, you full on kill it. They did, however, not need to attack with all 3. They miscalculated to that. Domri can now fight, so I'm not in a good spot, however I slice it. I think I play Cranko. Hope I draw something good. Not quite good enough. Though if it was the other way around, it would have been great. But, you know, fight, Cranko.
Wild beasts are
Yeah.
bringing your comeuppance.
Although I now do get access to... This is, this is not going to be going my way. Not in the slightest.
Behold nature's true power.
Well... green. I want the red open because I am most certainly dead here. So I just want to give them a little bit of a
We won't answer
help
other
up.
guilds.
With the barge in, because why not? Capital Beast Whisperer. Which means they've got something else they want to play, because otherwise they're just questing beasts and swinging lots. Oh wait, they've got, yeah, double, yeah, that.
The land fights for us.
Uh, 3/6. I'm just gonna let Grumgully be generous. But he gets to live. That's just how generous he is. Ah well. Yeah. Better tool on... I should have probably played the... just risked the Cranko there. They either killed it, and I got a weaker Cranko that would then grow still. That would then have mana up later. But not applying creature pressure when I had the chance. So first off, Kenrith. Another one I've not played against. Lots of interesting ones today. This will do. So we get our Pelt Collector. That doesn't trigger, unfortunately. So that's not the best turn too. I might hold off on it. I hope this doesn't end up just... I mean, I guess it's not... presumably not going to be straight up Field of the Dead. It's probably got Field of the Dead in it, since when you're playing 5 turns you have enough lands for it. But I would expect Golos, since in Singleton you're only going to be able to get that one. But obviously Bant does make sense for the ramp as appropriate. So put the counter on Grumgully. So that everything has a counter. So they could Kenrith this turn. They're going to prison realm, presumably Grumgully. Not a problem. Goes to command zone. So I think if I get a land, I go for the Ooze. Yeah, Ooze seems like the right play. Ooze it is. Actually, Keeper of Fables draws me a card. And it gets the Cult Collector to a bigger so that Paradise Druid can't trade into it. Alright, draws me a card. Not the best, but it would have been what I drew next turn, so they could now have access to Time White. Actually no, they need double white. Yep, there's the field. I do need to hurry up and start doing things though, because otherwise I'm just going to outright kill them. In fact, I might be able to, so 3, 4, 5, 9, plus 2, plus 4, so 6. So it's very much to the wire. Okay, I think we attack first. See what they do. I should have barged in instead, so that I could still play something this turn. Whoops. Okay, come on, draw. And untap land. Easy. Although then you don't get a counter. I think we're fine. They have to get a significant board presence this turn to prevent lethal. I have the barge in. That might do it. Yeah, they have lifelink. And once again, let's see what they do. Presumably they don't block Starry. Yep, so... I do live from the lifelink, I think. Yep. But I do get my card draw, get my Grumgully. Yeah. We go for Grumgully now. If they do have a board wipe, then the use is good for recovering after that. Hydra for 4. So it can kill something. Grumgully. Commands on that. Get a red. So, Troll Red grows the Pelt Collector. Then gets Trample. Not big enough to punch through that. Could drop Grumgully again. I think I do do this. This. Oh, I've not got Grumgully. Whoops. Ow. I was like, oh yeah, I'll get a counter and I'll be able to give me 3 mana next turn. Oops, I should have gone for the goose. However, I'm hoping to be able to go wide enough to just get that last bit in. Kenrith comes down 3, 4, 5. Requires 3 mana. So yep, there we go. Still worked out in the end.